The 2020 virtual F1 in Schools World Finals have begun. We've got lots of interesting topics to cover today, from team introductions and reaction racing, all the way to Boris Johnson. You're listening to Trackside from Off the Track. Hello and welcome to Trackside from Off the Track. We are back finally after a long wait and one of the most difficult seasons in F1 in Schools history. We are here, we're finally doing the 2020 World Finals. My name's Peter Russell and I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Walker.
Hello.
Riley McGlue.
Hello.
And Ethan Carl.
Hello.
It's fantastic to be back after, I think, 6 months, is it, Michael? We've been away.
Oh, yeah, it's about 6 months
But we're here, we're back.
It feels good, back in the saddle.
It's amazing. Good to get back into the swing of things. And we are going big this time because this podcast will be released every day of the World Finals. So I think we've got 5 episodes.
Yeah, we got two at the end of the week. Yeah,
giving away a little secret there, but yeah, there will be 2 episodes on the Tuesday. So every day at 7 a.m. BST, you can find an episode of Trackside coming out. And we've also got some other content, so make sure to follow us on our social media and check out our website, which has just been redeveloped a lot faster.
That was Peter's headache. That
was a big headache trying to get that sorted out. But it's up and it's running.
It looks amazing.
Yes,
brilliant.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. But yeah, it's good. It's good to be back in the swing of things. So let's talk about what's been happening, shall we? And quite unexpected, Boris Johnson. He showed up in the opening ceremony. Let's listen to a bit of what he said.
I'd like to welcome the teams from around the world to this virtual edition of Formula One in Schools International Final. Science, technology, engineering and maths, the STEM subjects, will be key components in steering us through the great challenges the world faces today and tomorrow. It's fantastic to see that so many young people from all corners of the globe share that passion, that interest in pushing engineering and technology. The demand for STEM skills is growing. In taking part in F1 in Schools, you're rising to this challenge and equipping yourselves with the skills needed for work. And what better way to learn than through the invigorating stimulation of competition. So with that, I wish all of the teams the best of luck and my congratulations to the eventual winner.
Michael, we're both British. What was your take on having Boris open it? I think that was quite good, just to have some.
I think it was good. I think it's appropriate. I don't think him opening like Singapore would have been appropriate, but because it's being hosted in Britain, I think it's good to see the government taking such an active role in F1 in schools.
And it's fantastic to see government support, for this amazing competition. And I think especially given how difficult this season has been, it's well deserved to have someone so high up in government be speaking.
Someone so recognisable as well.
Yeah.
International recognition as
and
well.
And recognising the hard work that all the students have put in this year. It's been a tough season. Riley, you've been working through this and you're competing this year. There's been 2 postponements, as we know. How does it feel just to finally see the fruits of your work?
This World Finals, although it's really different, it's definitely great to finally be coming to the last part of it. The last 2 weeks, obviously the deadlines for the majority of the work to be submitted was 2 weeks ago, so it's been a very different 2 weeks of waiting as opposed to regular competitions. Like, this is usually the time we'd be refining our verbals, all that kind of stuff. But no, it's just made the anticipation even higher for what's to come this weekend.
And you've got the unique experience of having been to the 2019 World Finals as well, which was the last in-person World Finals, and this one. So I can imagine, it must be really difficult. And as you said, you'd be you'd be doing things last minute now, but because everything's been submitted in advance. So what has changed this year from a regular World Finals? What have you had to submit in advance?
So the portfolios have been due much earlier than usual. And the verbal presentation's been a video. That's probably been arguably one of the biggest changes to the regulations. It's really allowed for a lot more creativity in the video making. The virtual pit display, that's been really interesting to create and submit. And the freedom in the choices that you can make with a virtual pit display as opposed to a physical one definitely has, I'd say, reshaped the nature of the booth part of the competition. So it's going to be really interesting to see what all the teams have done.
Do you think it's a more level playing field when there's no requirement to physically build and ship a pit display?
I would say there definitely is. It's much more difficult at the same time because you kind of have you don't really have an excuse to put it in those terms, to not have the perfect display. You don't have a budget limit. You don't have a limit on what you can put on the display. Like, it's really quite frightening almost that if you don't build a perfect display, almost every other team has the potential to have a much better display than you.
So, Riley, you mentioned some changes of regulations, and we are now on revision 4 of the regulations for this season, and they've introduced a 10-point bonus for the fastest lap throughout the competition, with the exception of knockouts. Only for eligible cars, though. If your car has a performance penalty, you will not receive this 10-point bonus. But guys, what do we think of this?
I don't know. It's been borrowed from Formula One, the fastest lap bonus points. I think it is. Is it 1 point, 1 championship point?
Yes, it's 1 point.
Yeah. So that's where it's come from. I don't know if that will lead to any size. If that will decide who becomes world champion or not. But we have seen in recent times that the podium has become closer and closer. So it may be to address that. I'm not
the
too
fight
sure.
for that trophy is getting very competitive and very hard.
Indeed.
Speaking of the trophy, we now have a new trophy. We've actually got 2. We've got one that keeps going between teams as is usual from one winner to another, and then we've got one that the teams get to keep, which I think is lovely. And they haven't done the cheap thing of doing a non-fungible token. So it's a physical thing. It's a real thing. So what do we guys think about that? I think having one to keep is amazing, brilliant.
Yeah, having a trophy to keep is definitely on a much better scale, in my opinion, than a perpetual trophy, because it's always nice to have a perpetual trophy, don't get me wrong, but just being able to have one which that you don't have to return, and something other than like a certificate that's a real reminder or token that you did well would be great. I think it's an amazing idea for the eventual world champions.
I think they've hit the nail on the head with a perpetual and a trophy to keep. Speaking of hitting the nail on the head, the team introductions, there were some really good ones that we saw. Countries introduced their own languages. Obviously, it's an international competition, and it was a good time to showcase that. One of the Irish teams, Quintilux, they had some Gaelic. There were other teams from Malaysia and China that really got out there and showed some of their language and some culture. I thought that was lovely.
And the graphics as well. They were some of the teams. They had amazing graphics.
Yeah.
And it's just this virtual World Finals has really presented the opportunity for teams to express themselves in new, creative ways, which is fantastic. So there is a bit of an upside to having a virtual competition. apart from the fact that, you know, we ourselves don't have to travel to it. And we can, we were discussing just before we started recording that we can be in our pajamas if we wanted to and still do this. So it's not all terrible news, but yeah, I think it would have been better if it was in person. But, you know, the circumstances don't allow it at the moment, and this is still the best we've got. So it's not too bad.
Yeah. Better, yes, but I think everyone can agree that it's not categorically worse. It is different in a way that it's easier to express more abstract ideas more fully than maybe if we hadn't had a virtual finals. But if you look at the way they're being assessed, you've got 2 interviews now for Enterprise. You've got your standard interview, and then your interview about project management, which became a really big focus this season for the F1 in Schools competition. And we did an episode on this back before our hiatus. Is that episode 19? Was it, Peter?
Yeah, I can't remember now. It's been such a long time.
It has been a long time. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
The one we're talking about. So, Riley, are you terrified of these 2 new interviews, or you feel like you're gonna smash them?
Oh look, the addition of a project management interviews definitely, well, with the whole booklet, as we've already discussed, has definitely changed the competition. Like, I would say that the fact that the project managers now, like, when before it was all in one interview, there was kind of a lot more room for multiple team members to talk. Now it's kind of like a lot stricter. Like, okay, this team member's got responsible for this part of one interview. So like the team manager's responsible for most of the stuff that goes on the project management interview. It's not as much of a team interview in my opinion. The resource manager and graphic designer and marketing manager have their own responsibility for the enterprise one now. And obviously the engineers already have their design engineering interview.
And talking about differences with this competition, obviously it's virtual, so the teams aren't going to be there. So they've got a new reaction racing online portal where you can teams can set their reaction times ahead of the races.
Have you had a go at that, Ethan?
Yeah, I've tried it. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens, because from what we've heard is you do your reaction racing online, and then they've somehow manually put it onto the gate, so if you got like a 0.2 reaction time, your reaction time will automatically be 0.2, so the car is delayed by 0.2 seconds, and then it launches down the track. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make that work and see how it happens.
And also with competitors not being there, breakages will be another interesting point of difference with this virtual competition. And I know, Ethan, with Ionic, breakages were quite a point with your team. What do you think it'd be like if you were competing this time round and you wouldn't have been able to do what you did to your car to repair it? It would have been a lot more difficult and to trust the team over at HQ to repair it, because you don't have any control over that.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more difficult, as with our World Finals car last year. Instead of it breaking off into like a couple pieces, it turned to like 5 or 6 different little mini pieces. So you had to glue all of them together to then glue back onto the car. And I was feeling with this competition, I don't know if they'll be able to do that within, I think it's 5 minutes of your time to repair it. So it will be interesting to see with what happens with breakages this time around.
I think it would be the fact that they're not as motivated as well, judges, is because their points are on the line, whereas you were probably under the hammer and you really felt the pressure. But I think they should be mindful that they may take longer to do it, but they probably end up with the same result you would have because they're just not feeling the pressure. Peter? And
what are the regulations around breakages, Riley? What have teams been told in terms of breakages? How is the team at HQ going to repair cars?
The majority of what the regulations outline to us is pretty much just that they'll try and repair them to the best of their ability. I'm not sure if the time limit's actually still being imposed. I don't believe... I think it still says it in the regulations, but I'm not sure whether... it doesn't apply it specifically to the judges. That could be slightly different. It's an interesting thing to note in the regulations is that they've only mentioned that they're going to be doing car repairs after racing session 1. So whether that means that any cars that break in racing session 2 will be ineligible for knockouts or anything would be interesting to hear. But on that point though, knockouts not being worth any points as well as the reaction times. Personally, I think it's a necessary change due to the fact that the reactions aren't really as accurate nor as consistent across teams due to the nature that it's a website, so teams could be doing it on whatever device with different latency cables. It's just not really a fair shot for all the teams. So yeah, anyone got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit harder to ensure the integrity of reaction times. And, I'm not sure if they've got any processes in place to ensure integrity, but as they've done, they've basically made reactions not... It's more of a nice to have than essential thing this time round, by the sounds of it.
You know what it is? It's a mini game.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's good. It's good just to have some element of the physical competition in place.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's a good implementation. I think it's far better than just scrapping it entirely. I like to see that they've put thought and effort into that. I think it shows how much they truly care about this competition. And I think that I agree with all of you when you say that it's the knockouts being worth 0 points makes sense.
So let's talk about what's coming up today. Riley, what have the teams got on?
So for everyone to view, we've got the first day of racing, obviously split into its 3 sessions. So Asia and Oceania is happening from 7:30 UTC, with Europe and Middle East happening from 11 o'clock UTC, and racing session 3, which is the Americas, taking place at 3:30 PM UTC. Also, just for the teams in general, behind closed doors, there'll be a variety of interviews, such as the enterprise portfolio judging, design and engineering judging, project management judging, as well as a media interview today for each of the teams. So yeah.
And it should be exciting. It's the first day of running of the cars. That should be good to see, and we'll be able to see where all the teams fall in line with the leaderboard at the end of the day, hopefully. And then the day after that, we've got more racing. So yeah, finally, after a year and a half, we're here.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Finally.
Feels good.
Feels
so yeah,
great.
That's what's happening on the track. But with us, for off the track, we'll be back here again at 7 AM BST tomorrow. So
Back trackside.
with Trackside, that's correct. Thank you for listening to today's recap of the 2020 F1 in Schools World Finals. If you want continued insight and to see interesting developments in real time, follow us on our socials at Off the Track Podcast on Instagram, at Off the Track Pod on Twitter, and our website offthetrack.net. Good luck to all teams, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Trackside is a production of Off the Track Media. F1 in Schools and related marks are trademarks of Formula One licensing, a Formula One group company.